Hi everybody who is watching the live streaming. I do apologise for that slightly longer adjournment than what was planned. Obviously we are working remotely at the moment, so in terms of sending across motions and emails and discussing things, it's just a little bit harder. So thank you for bearing with us. We do want to make sure, obviously, our meeting procedures and governance, everything is correct. So we want to get this right. I do apologise that it did take a bit longer and that prior to the adjournment, it was also very messy. So where we left it at, so Councillor Nation had moved an amendment. It hadn't been seconded yet. Councillor Nation, just for clarity, can you please read what your amendment was? Councillor Nation, your microphone's not on.
So my amendment was the insertion after round 2, 4, the insertion of the words in priority order, Stratherd Reserve, lot 2223 for site purchase and construction of a pocket park, and then that would be inserted there and continue the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Is everyone clear on that? Now, is there a seconder for that amendment? If there's no seconder for the amendment, it will lapse and we'll go back to the substantive motion.
Now I'll move another amendment, Mayor.
That's fine. I haven't lapsed it yet. I'm just making sure. No, okay, I will call it lapsed. And Councillor Nation, you are allowed to move another amendment.
Thank you. So I'll move an amendment for the insertion at the end of the existing motion on the floor, and Stratherd Reserve, lot 22/23, comma, for site purchase and construction of a pocket park.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. That amendment is moved. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Gauchimarici. Thank you. Now, Councillor Nation, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Oh, okay. And thank you to anyone who is still tuned in and patient. Obviously, this is a very passionate matter for everyone. And if the government is giving us hopefully some money to spend on a pocket park, there'll be obviously a difference in opinions. And I said at the very start of my address, mine won't necessarily be popular because I'm actually putting preference on a pocket park outside of the ward I represent, but in my opinion, it's the best possible spot. So why do I think that Stratherd Reserve warrants a pocket park under this funding? I spoke in my original address to the motion about Moonee Pond's obviously undergoing a bit of change, but not necessarily that pocket at the corner of Patterson, at 36 Patterson Street. Strathmore has been undergoing some significant change as well. And I think about that first period when I was on council, and we had new streets being created, Jones Court, Coalclough Court. We had Lamart turning into two ends, and there was one application on Lamart Street very early in my council time on council that had 12 dwellings. And we know that that development in that little pocket of Strathmore has definitely intensified. We know as well, and Councillor Gauchimarici mentioned it in her comments, that there is parkland at the bottom of the hill, down at Strathnavor or Boeing, but that is a 400-metre walk away. It mightn't seem like much, but actually when I compared and had a look at the distance of Patterson Street to open space and Stratherd Reserve to open space, so Stratherd Reserve was actually a lot further away, and it was 400 metres as of the Google distance measurement. So I know that there's a passionate group of community members up there in Strathmore that have had a park. It's been taken away from them. They've advocated to council and state government and been let down for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. We now have an opportunity to hopefully get some funding to enable the retention of that park. And council has said to these residents over and over again that the money is the issue. So now we have the opportunity. I know that council has purchased Patterson Street for the purpose of creating into open space, but this is already open space. And on reflection, with all things considered, this is why I consider Strathayed Reserve more important for this funding, grant funding, than Patterson Street. Obviously, the last motion lapsed, or the amendment lapsed, so this amendment is to put both forward. Some of us think, obviously, Strathayed is going to be the preferred site. Some of us obviously think Patterson Street. We put them both forward, but I just hope that we can take the next step now, that hopefully, and in my opinion, hopefully those members around Strathayed, the residents around Strathayed Reserve, can get the retention of their open space, can get a pocket park, can get their play equipment back in, because there's more and more families moving there, moving into that area. They need open space, and I think that Strathayed is the priority for this grant funding stream. So I hope fellow councillors will support this amendment to the existing motion to include Strathayed in for our application for this pocket park funding. If we probably go on any more, we may be into the next day, which is when the actual application's due. So please, councillors, I ask you to support this amendment to then become the substantive motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Gatchmarichi, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will, and I'd like to thank Councillor Nation for including Strathayed as an amendment. Hopefully that resolves the need to have a foreshadowed motion. Given the confusion we've had so far, let's not continue and create more confusion. Certainly for me, I guess I mentioned it before about my concerns with not including Strathayed. We attend numerous consultation meetings as ward councillors where we hear about the intensification of these suburbs and the multi-unit lots where backyards are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And to have an open space within small walking distance, safe walking distance across residential streets rather than major roads, in a way where the government is funding it is really important to us. And I think particularly when you think that, for example, Boeing Reserve, that we often refer to as the closest park, we don't own all of either, so we may not always have forever. As we learnt previously with Strathayed, this is our opportunity to secure a small pocket park at the back of Strathmore Heights, and I look forward to seeing Patterson being funded too, and I look forward to us getting funding for both. So thank you, Councillor Nation, for including it as an amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Gatchmarichi. Would anyone else like to speak on this amendment? Councillor Sorais.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate again what I'd probably said earlier, and that is that the guidelines included us to nominate 2 parks. So yeah, I would have loved to have seen Valley Lakes in there, and I probably would have loved to have seen some other areas that are listed in the report around the Essendon area as well. But these 2 have been identified. Well, I'm not sure about Patterson because I'll be honest, I know the area, but I haven't actually physically been down there for a long time. And Councillor Nation made some valid points in that, but I guess submitting 2 of these and ones that have been recommended to our officers is the way to go. So at least we've got them listed, we've got them on the books, we've got them being put up for consideration. And that's what we need to do. We need to work with the state government to be able to get our little part of pocket money from them to be able to do these pocket parks and provide that open space for our community. So I support the amendment as put by Councillor Nation.
Thank you, Councillor Sorais. Councillor Marshall, I think I saw your hand up.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I think we all expected that the motion that was moved would include just this. So it's probably disappointing that we've now spent however long it would be having this discussion, when if someone had moved the motion that they had prepared earlier, then we would have avoided all of this. And what's been certainly something that I also apologise to the residents on behalf of the way this has played out. Differences of opinion are great, but I think given what you've been through to date, I would have hoped that this would have played out in a much better way without you feeling dragged through like as a football once again. So I think we've got to the right point. It has been much more circuitous than it should have been. So I'll just make that point too. I think probably, as I said, my concerns, I'm happy to support this. Probably if anyone had raised this as Strathayed as a possibility before tonight, officers would have had the time to actually go and do more work to enhance our grant application. So perhaps have discussions with Vic Roads or whatever it might be. So I do worry that because this has only been raised tonight, that perhaps some of those opportunities to strengthen a grant application have been lost, but perhaps officers might see fit to see what they can do tomorrow before we do have to submit it, to try and see whether they can make contact with Vic Roads and see if we can get a letter of support or something along those lines. So I think on that regard, I have no issue around with both of them. We won't get both of them. We got Flemington, so we know that, you know, we were very grateful to get that. We'll, if we're lucky, get one, and that will be fabulous. If we miss out on both, then obviously we need to think about what we're going to do with funding, given the show of support for both Paterson and Stratherd that has been exhibited tonight. And I certainly acknowledge again the passion of the residents, who we had numerous emails, all councillors did, I understand, from residents in relation to Stratherd. So I think certainly acknowledge that the work that you've all done. Ultimately, with any grant application, we know at the moment that the grant applications are heavily subscribed. We've had that advice in relation to other ones. So there's no guarantee you'll get money. What we need to do is we need to put in the best grant application possible. The officer's advice was that Paterson Street would be the one for that. So hopefully that is a strong application, and hopefully in the time from now to when we submit tomorrow, Stratherd will be beefed up and strengthened up as much as is humanly possible within that time. So I'm more than happy to support it. I don't understand why the motion moved initially. It wasn't exactly this. We've got there in the end, which is great, but I certainly do apologise to anyone watching this or who may hear about this for any upset or confusion or whatever that may have been caused.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Anyone else on the amendment? Councillor Cusack.
Thanks, Mayor. I have no problem with the amendment. There had been some conversations around the rights and wherefores, the whys and wherefores of putting Stratherd up prior to this meeting, and it didn't occur to me that it should be not included. So, as I agree with Councillor Marshall, that I thought that this would have been the case right at the beginning of this debate. I also, I suppose, must echo other councillors' comments that unfortunately it got a bit heated before the adjournment, and things were said, and confusion reigned rather than cool heads. But I think we're in a space now to make a decision. I just want to, in terms of Stratherd, while I'm not particularly worried about it, I don't see a priority in it. I don't see a priority in, sorry, I don't get this right. I see it as an important thing for the community. I don't see this matter that we're debating now as a case of priorities. We can put them both up, and of course, we're not the decision makers. It's the state government, and whoever we're making the application to will do it on the basis of what the guidelines are and what the merits of the proposal are. So we're only talking about what we're going to put up. And therefore, in that case, I have a lot of sympathy for the people of up there in Strathmore, and the loss of the playground was one thing that has always hung around as a real problem. But in terms of Paterson Street, I must talk to that a little bit. Paterson Street, the idea of a pocket
Councillor
park.
Cusack, we are just speaking on the amendment. If it's related to the amendment, as long as it's to the amendment.
Talking to both items. I've just finished talking about Stratherd. Now, why Paterson Street's part of that proposal? Yeah.
So we're just speaking on Councillor Nation's amendment to include Stratherd.
Oh.
You've already spoken on the substantive motion.
Oh, well, okay. Well, in this case, sorry, thanks for the correction, Mayor. Well, I'm happy enough to, as I've said, to have Stratherd in there. It is one definition of a pocket park. we've as Councillor Marshall pointed out, been successful in getting a pocket park in Flemington, and the notion of pocket parks are a really important part of all of our community, and making them actually work is not something that we define, but it's how the community does it. And the issue about access to places, the incidental nature of pocket parks, and their capacity to influence not just now, but the way a community interacts in all sorts of ways in the future is important. So I'm happy enough to have that included in the substantive motion and take it away from there. I thought we could.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Now, everyone has now spoken on the amendment, and I don't believe I heard any dissent. So I will put just the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Cusack, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Soares, Councillor Gatchamarici, Councillor Nation, and all those against is Councillor Byrne. So that amendment is carried. So that is now part of the substantive. So of the substantive, I've got the Councillor Cusack, Soares, Nation, Gatchamarici have spoken. Councillor Marshall, I'm unsure whether you had finished your speech on the substantive motion before we went to the amendment.
Sorry, Mayor, I missed who'd spoken in relation to this motion.
Councillor Cusack, Soares, Nation, Gatchamarici, and you had
I hadn't
spoken,
finished
but I'm
yet.
not sure if you'd finished.
No, I hadn't, because the
Yep.
amendment. Yep. So,
Yep.
well, look, I won't be too repetitive other than to say we got to the point we should have got to at the start of the night. I hope that all of us reflect on this, because this is a public forum. And when we are asking people for money, how we behave and the information and the things that we put out in public are obviously part of that whole process around how people view things. So I think that there's probably some opportunity to think about how we might like to handle these types of situations going forward, how we make sure that we put grant applications in and they're done so in enough time to make sure that they're as strong as possible, because we know we see ourselves when we're assessing grant applications, ones that have got great supporting evidence, letters of support, all of that sort of stuff are the ones that tend to do better. And by only having anyone indicate that they wanted Strathayed to be in at this last minute tonight has really meant that we've lost that opportunity. Although, as I said, hopefully that officers will be able to madly scurry around tomorrow getting some supporting information. And in relation to Patterson Street, I am assuming from everything that I've seen that what has been prepared in relation to that is as strong as possible, so that we can put our best foot forward, and hopefully when the applications are assessed as against the grant criteria, that they come up well. And we won't get both, but if we got one, that would be absolutely fabulous to go with our Flemington edition. So I think that is probably the end of it. I'm not sure how long this item's gone for, but it's probably close to setting a record.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Marshall. Now, Councillor Cusack, so everyone has spoken on the substantive motion. Now, just for peace sake, I will allow Councillor Cusack, if you'd like to close, because there was all sorts of, yeah, I'll allow you to close on this item if you'd like, Councillor Cusack.
Well, I'm not going to pour any petrol on the fire, and I think that our community deserves the respect to know that its elected representatives are making every effort they can to reflect the needs of the community and the opportunity for the community to benefit by getting funding for both of these proposals. I note that the Strathayed one will require some work, and that officers really need to get onto their bike on it, because there are questions around how it lines up against the requirements of the grant and funding requirements for the grant, and whether it will work in that space. I hope it does. But the
apologies, Councillor sorry, Councillor Cusack, I think I have made a mistake. I'll just refer to governance. As the amendment was passed, I apologise. You actually don't get a closing.
So I don't
Yes,
get to close
sorry.
on this.
No, sorry. Even though, which was one of those things that I think we've looked into for the next the meeting procedures, because it is sort of one of those unusual anomalies when there's things that come in. So I do apologise for that, Councillor Cusack. So as the amendment,
I wish I'd reversed my mistake then and talked about Patterson Street before I talked about Strathhead.
Okay, I think it's just been one of those nights. So we have the substantive motion with the amendment, and I have been advised that the live streaming didn't come back on in time or wasn't clear with audio. And if it's possible, Councillor Nation, can you just, if you've got the substantive motion in full, can you just read that out, please?
So you want the full motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, so yeah, including the original and
the amendment, yeah.
So the motion as it stands now is that Council resolves to apply in August 2020 for Local Parks Program Pocket Park funding, round 2, for the site at 36 Patterson Street, Moonee Ponds, open brackets, pending final execution of sale, close brackets, for site preparation and construction of a pocket park, and Strathhead Reserve, open brackets, lots 22/23, close brackets, comma, for site purchase and construction of a pocket park.
Beautiful. Thank you, Councillor Nation. That was obviously, I'm not sure exactly how the audio went, so that was passed as an amendment. So it is now the substantive motion. So I will now put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Cusack, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Soros, Councillor Gatchmarici and Councillor Nation, and all those against is Councillor Byrne. So that motion is carried. Okay, we got there in the end. Okay, so apologies, I'm just getting back to the notes. Now we don't have any, we're up to item 11 on the agenda and we don't have any notices of motion. Councillors, do we have any urgent business tonight? No. Delegates reports? No. And we don't have any confidential reports. Therefore, we are up to the close of the meeting. So thank you everyone for joining in online. Definitely a different council meeting, but obviously, you know, we do like to encourage robust debate as much as possible. So thank you everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay in these very unusual, strange COVID times, and we'll see you in a fortnight for the next meeting. Bye.